Welcome back again, Chess Masters. I hope everyone's having a good lockdown and looking forward to hopefully going back to school soon. It looks like there's some possibility that we could even have chess soon. I'll have to speak to your schools about whether they're going to have after school and lunchtime activities, but it's a possibility. If you're back at school, if I'm allowed, we would be running chess club again in only a couple of weeks. And I know I've played a lot of chess online, and occasionally when I've met up with someone in my bubble, of course, to play chess, it's been so much more fun to play in person. So I hope everyone's looking forward to real games again with your friends and to see the expression on everyone's face and to see people get excited and have lessons and get to answer questions together in a room. So sorry about my last video. For anyone who watched my video from last week, I didn't have the audio working, so you can't hear anything. So I'm instead, for this video, instead of redoing it, I'm going to do a game I liked from last Saturday's tournament, which we had a few usual suspects getting the top places. Really good to see Elwood Pitt doing well and Vrinda in second and third place, and even a few new people I'm not too familiar with. And I liked the top game, which was for first place, between J4 and Chessonholiday. And I hope you've been using the analysis button, which again is to get the computer to help you see which moves were stronger and not so strong. But I'm going to have it here again because I hope people use it because it's really helpful. So once that's finished, again, we've got the bar here which tells us who should be winning and which moves are good or bad is indicated by the little symbol next to the move here. So this was a pretty exciting game because there was, as usual, my favorite games have comebacks and you can't tell who's going to win. So we've got J4, really strong player, played me in a few games and gave me a hard time, and an old student I've taught for a long time who I know is very enthusiastic, Chessonholiday, who isn't actually the dog in the picture in case you thought a dog was playing. So we have J4 opening with the king's pawn. Same for Chessonholiday. And they get the knights out first, and then if you ever see this position, you're very aware that this is about the most aggressive you can play in an opening. So J4, getting these pieces out, getting ready to castle, and there's a weak point you should all know that black should be watching out for now. We have this weak pawn here. The bishop's already lined up. The knight is hoping to line up soon if the queen wasn't there. So you should be keeping your eye on that weak pawn. Even if sometimes you might know, for example, at the beginning your four-move checkmate and you realize that as you get a bit better, you can't do the four-move checkmate against people, so you don't watch out for it. But it's still useful to learn some of these traps and tricks because later on in the game, similar patterns can happen. This same pawn might still be weaker later. Just because the queen didn't come out for a four-move checkmate or it's not a fried liver, keep your eye on this being a weak pawn because similar patterns can happen. Black gets the bishop out. White moves the pawn, opening up this bishop. Solid developments until this move, which some of you might know, I've mentioned in my classes, is referred to sometimes as the trash can opening. It's not very helpful for castling on this side. It doesn't help us develop. We're trying to get knights and bishops out at the beginning. And look what the computer thinks. Second opinion from the computer. White was winning by half a pawn's worth, 0.5, and now black's winning by nearly a pawn just for that one move. That's what the computer calculates. And question mark also means it is a mistake. So it is defended by how many pieces? 1, 2, and there's 2 attackers. So that's okay, but it's really important to castle, and this doesn't help our castle position. Of course, if you'd done this, would you still castle on this side? I hope not. I would castle on the queen side. So apparently black's got a little advantage according to me and the computer calculator. All right, again, The computer shows the better move. Guys, it's simple. I've been telling you since you were beginners at chess, get your bishops and your knight outs early before we do little pawn shuffle moves. Knight comes out, that looks good. Bishop out is good, and we have here, of course, a pin. The knight cannot move or the queen gets taken. Now, I've told you a few times, but just ask yourself, how many times should we move each piece at the beginning? One time only. So, this bishop has moved. I wouldn't move it again until I've moved all my other pieces out. White gets the bishop out. Very sensible. And nearly ready to castle. Black does a swap. And look what the computer thinks here. We know a knight and a bishop are the same value, 3 points each. But just because we're moving a piece twice, and white will get in a better position, we go from here, black was winning by 0.4, to white winning by 1.5. So the first thing to ask yourself, when you're questioning, should I take it? Am I moving a piece twice? Yes. So black's sort of wasting moves. You got the bishop all the way out here, and then we waste the bishop. Moves that have been invested in this piece, where the white knight only moved once. So it doesn't help us develop quickly. And the next question to ask yourself is, after this happens, what will white take back with? Probably the queen, right? So the pawns don't double up. Queen comes out. Now, who's in a better position? If you're black, do you prefer the queen being black here or here? I know we don't want the queen out too early, but all the other pieces have developed. You actually do want your queen coming out now. And there's another piece off the board. So you'd be happy to have your queen out now, especially because, obviously, where's the queen going to go next? And this is where you want to remember your patterns of tricks and traps at the beginning. We might not have had a 4-move checkmate, but it's the same thing could happen almost now. Pretty similar with the weak pawn. So will black spot the attack? No. The black queen moves forward, and what we should have had, I would have liked the knight to come out and block the weak pawn. Or with the bishop is good too. So, very good. Big advantage now. Look what the computer reckons. 4.7 advantage for J4. Looking pretty comfortable at this point. Or will the tables turn? King has to move, so black can't castle anymore. And white gets another free piece. And here we are defending the castle, and the knight is defended. So the big question now, should you swap queens? Remember, if you're up on pieces, you usually want to swap queens, and white's only up a couple of pawns, so you might just be conservative and do the easy option and swap off. But another consideration is if the king hasn't castled and the king's a bit stuck in the middle, then if I'm white, I prefer to have the queens on the board because the king's in danger. When king's in danger, it's good to have your queen to exploit that danger. If the king's castled away over here, it doesn't matter if the black queen's still on the board, it probably can't get to the king. So I probably wouldn't swap. Let's see what the computer says. And again, you can analyze your own games, and if the computer says your score goes down after a move, you should try and understand why that was a mistake. And you can think about it and work it out by yourself. So white was winning by 4 points. Now the computer says only by 3. The computer preferred the green arrow, which is to come back. King takes. And white castles. So white's in a more comfortable position now and has a couple of extra pawns. Castle comes out. That's a good sort of a manual castle. Good idea to get the castle out, and the king could slide over here. But again, which pieces do we develop first? It should be the knight. And first, apparently big mistake from black. So if I saw this straight away, there's not a major piece being lost straight away, and I might think that looks okay. But if you see it's a blunder, that's a good indicator that you should think ahead and think carefully why it was a mistake. We go from white winning by 3.7 to black winning by apparently 1. Let's see what could happen. What should black be doing? Is it a mistake? Black could take. White could take. Black could take. How many defenders does black have? We have the bishop. We have the knight. And white only has 2 attackers. So if white takes first, we can see black will be winning an extra piece. So let's see what Chessonholiday decides to do about that. Very good. Free pawn. And does white swap? No. White ignores this bishop. Because remember, we've got a fork anyway, actually. We've got two pieces being attacked. And we know we don't want to swap off. So we're going to lose one of them. And J4 decides to move the knight, which would be really good to get a check here, but I'm not sure if you noticed. It's actually defended. So of course, what does black do? Free bishop, and the computer calculates black is now winning. Black's actually up on points, on pieces a little bit now. So should you swap pieces? I hope not. Especially now, if we swap any more, remember when there's not many pieces left on the board, it doesn't matter if the king's out in the middle. We want to have the king in the middle at the end. So I probably wouldn't do this swap. And see what the computer says. Black was winning by 1.6. Black's now winning by 4.3. Remember as well, you invested all these moves in that knight. Now the knight gets taken, and this knight is very happy to get off the back line, and now black's got probably better development. All right, white takes, the pawns are doubled, and black gets the king back. And the reason that's not a good move, the computer doesn't like it, is again, we're near the end. I don't really need to protect the king now. So I'd even leave the king there and just keep developing and attack this weak pawn maybe. So king goes back, check. King moves into the corner, nice and safe. And it is a free pawn, right? But you don't mind losing this pawn much as white because it's a doubled pawn, so these pawns are really weak. And now black has actually a loose pawn that can't be protected. And that's why the computer says, orange question mark. We shouldn't have taken with the pawn. What Chessonholiday could have done is taken with the knight instead and kept a nice pawn formation. We have a swap. Very important to ask yourself, would you swap? It's important to know when you should swap and when you shouldn't. Who has more pieces? Black. Should white swap? No. So let's see. Black was winning by 2.8. Now, why didn't that change? 2.8, and the computer says it's still even. Didn't really give an advantage or disadvantage. The computer says that was a good move. And why would that be? I'd prefer to not swap generally, but the computer says apparently it was okay. So black's still up on pieces, but white's got the pawns. Remember, there's a pawn advantage. If white has an extra pawn on this side, the best tactic would be push these pawns forward and try and get one of them to the end. I think that's the best hope for white. The black knight's under attack. And there's a mistake. Maybe, I'm not sure if Chessonholiday got overly confident at this point or got distracted maybe. And he's still thinking maybe here about giving the king a trapdoor if the king gets attacked, but there's not much danger for the king when your opponent only has two major pieces on the board. So unfortunately, a knight has been lost, and now white is winning apparently by 3.1. And here's another mistake. Now white should be winning, but here maybe the players got a bit stressed out. I think I put the timer a bit shorter the other week, so maybe they were running out of time at this point. Because black obviously had, well, should they have swapped actually? Because if you take the bishop, white's going to take there, and then white's going to have more pawns for the ending. But the computer didn't like this bishop move and said instead the much better move would have been the free pawn, because if you got this pawn, these are passed pawns and they're going to run straight to the end. So should black swap here? Actually, I approve because, well, the computer thinks, the green arrow here, that black should have swapped, interestingly. But I would usually not swap if white has more pieces and white would get to the end, so I'm a bit surprised about that. So, black doesn't swap. White gets the free pawn. That's the other reason. At this point, you can't really afford to lose an extra pawn. So, if black had swapped, at least white wouldn't be getting the free pawn, right? So, free pawn for white. And white's now winning by 2.8. Knight comes into the mix to try and stop these pawns. These pawns are very dangerous now. Castle has to move. Another free pawn. Oh, not another, sorry. Black stops one of the pawns, and white still has the advantage on this side. Pawns are advancing. Free pawn here. We really, I think, should have protected that pawn. You could have moved it, as the computer suggests. But we don't want to lose that pawn at this stage. That's right, the king wants to come into the middle now, but black invested those previous moves to bring the king over here into the corner. Now you desperately want the king in the middle. If the king was in the middle, that could make all the difference. Check. Back in the corner, again, the computer agrees with me. We should be coming in the middle at the end of the game with the king. Check. King moves towards the middle, very good. Free pawn for white, and white's big advantage now. What do we think of that move? Why is it a blunder? The knight is not protected, it can be taken. And white looks very comfortable now. And from here, black pushed a few pawns, check. The pawns can't really be protected. I'd probably give up already, and here's... Now white was winning by a long way. I would probably give up if I was black, but look at this move, check. I don't know what happened at the end. I think people get a bit confident or not concentrating, maybe distracted. And that's such an unfortunate... I would have liked to see the tables turn at this point. Black must have been panicked or maybe out of time. We could have taken the castle here and then black would have had a good chance of winning. Would have been even, but I think panicked, black did the wrong move. And check, and black decided to give up at this point. Because obviously, pass pawn, they're going to get to the end. But it was a really interesting game. What we should remember is that weak pawn at the beginning. Remember, black's weak pawn got taken and the king had to move, is very important. We don't want to invest more than one move in each of our pieces at the beginning, or we will not develop as fast. And at the end of the game, we don't want to move the king into the corner. We want to have the king in the middle once a few pieces are off the board, especially if there's no queens on the board. Other than that, try and keep calm, even if there's a bit of time pressure. And don't miss those really important moves at the end when we've got free pieces. Pay attention and don't get distracted. All right, let me know. I've put again for next weekend shorter time frames for your games. So let me know if you like having 5-minute or 3-minute games, or if you want me to keep them 10 minutes or even longer. But then your tournament's going to go for a long time. I think it's good to change it up and try something different. Let me know. Good luck. Let me know if you have an interesting game you want me to analyze, and I'll have a look at it. See you soon. Hopefully see you at school.